Well, we are so glad to have y'all all here with us this morning on our fourth and final office hours of 2022. I know that we have all had a great time hosting these informal question answer sessions this year. And we hope that you all have enjoyed, logging on and seeing the questions that are coming in from all across the state, and just keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on as far as horticulture goes throughout the year. So we are so excited for this project that we're going to continue these into 2022, and we're going to bump up their frequency a little bit. This year we kind of went towards a quarterly kind of session, but next year we're going to try to meet 6 times, so every other month. That's going to help us kind of condense those questions down and get answers out to everybody a little more in a timely fashion. So we're ready to just jump in there. And we've got a great group of panelists. Y'all can see everybody who's on here. We've got 3, 6, 9. We've got 11 extension professionals here with us today, from all the way from East Tennessee all the way to the West. So lots of input for these questions. So we'll just jump right in there. And for those who might be new, I guess I'll introduce myself. I kind of facilitate the entire goings on, and my name is Celeste Scott, and I'm the horticulture extension agent in Madison County. And this group of folks, all of our panelists who are with us today, are members of the Sustainable Landscape Work Group and or Fruit and Vegetable Work Group. So these are the folks who are trying to get resources put together to help y'all and to help your agents at your local county level. So, okay, so let's jump in. So we'll start with fruit and we'll start with fruits. And we were a little low on fruit questions coming into the portal for this last quarter, but that's okay, because I'm sure Greg and Seth have plenty of information that they can provide to us just about timely things that we need to be doing in orchards and related to our fruits in a homeowner type situation. But we did have 2, so we'll go ahead and field those 2, and then we'll open it up for conversation there for a few minutes at the end. So the first question that we had come in this category says that they have 2 Osage orange trees, and most of their foliage has fallen off, and they only produced a few fruits this year. So any ideas? I mean, we didn't have any picture, and I know it's not a ton of information, but is there anything that kind of comes to mind there with those symptoms?
Well, Osage orange is a very, very hardy plant, and it can be found all across the Midwest and up through even further north. It's a very, very hardy plant. There could be a couple of thoughts on it. One would be environmental, maybe something in terms of weather changes that might cause that. It could be acyclical. If it produced very heavy the year before, maybe it was off and lower in terms of its fruit production the next year. But again, Osage orange is one that has very few pests in terms of insects or diseases. It's a very hardy plant. And my bet that if it's dropping fruit like that, it's either a weather event or something just environmentally there, and really probably not something the homeowner is going to have any option to work with.
All right, good to know, good to know. And then we had another come in through the question portal that is asking about treatment and prevention of apple blossom wilt. I don't know what that is. Maybe.
And for that, I've never heard of apple blossom wilt either. Now, 2 things that I would think might be a causal agent. If in the springtime, is it winter damage? Because those will brown up. If you got some frost or winter injury on it, you'd see those blossoms kind of brown up and die back. If you're seeing more of the branch die back other than just the bloom itself, I suspect it's fire blight. And with fire blight, you'll see that telltale shepherd's crook where the end of the branch will bend over. It'll brown back in the stem. And so fire blight is a bacterial disease that actually enters through the blossom itself, that opening into the plant. That's how it gets into the stem. And that's one of the main reasons why, in terms of pruning, we tell people to prune during that dormant period in colder weather when that fire blight's not going to be as active. and disinfecting your pruning shears, and also using something like streptomycin antibiotic spray to control that bacteria during the bloom period, when that bacteria could enter that opening through that bloom. That's really the only way you control that, is spraying on a 3 to 5 day period during that bloom period with an antibiotic spray to control that disease. Biggest thing I tell homeowners, try to use cultivars that are resistant to fire blight rather than trying to get into a program that you're trying to treat for fire blight.
Yeah, for pears, it is essential because fire blight is just devastating. And for apples, it is certainly an issue as well. And we've got some new a new apple pear publication that is almost done that really focuses on some of those disease resistant cultivars that are getting more prevalent and easier to find.
It's unfortunate that we don't have a singular one that attacks calorie pears.
Yeah, and I want to add here too. I heard the word blossom there, and I thought of the apple blossom end rot, not to be mistaken with the blossom end rot for tomatoes, but it's another disease caused by a fungal issue. And you kind of see that sunken brown lesions on that fruit there for the apples. But I heard that word there, blossom, and I thought that what it could be, but usually this only appears in very prolonged, cool, wet weather, which depending where you're located, we may or may not have had. But definitely another cultivar selection to hopefully prevent some of those issues. Like Delicious is definitely one of the cultivars that is affected by this. But like Greg said, using those preventative sprays, Captan has shown pretty good efficacy for blossom end rot, specifically for apples there.
We've actually had a couple of good fruit questions come into the Q&A. Melody, this one's for you. You may have even planted some of these recently. There's a question about pawpaws. Would you still put them in the ground now or wait some? Have you planted pawpaws in the last month, Melody?
Yeah, I'm actually planting a few more today. So yes, get them in the ground by all means. I can't see the rest of that question. Hang on a minute. They're 2 years old. Yeah, no, get them in now. That way they can get their roots established. They'll actually put out some feeder roots through the cool winter months and really burst forth come springtime.
Awesome. We've got another one. Y'all are doing so good using the online chat feature, the question answer here. So feel free to, if you have questions, pop them in there and we'll try to get to them in the sections where we have time. So we've got another one here about blackberries. It says, my thornless blackberries didn't put out any new canes this year. I've had them for about 20 years. Can I renew them by splitting the old plant crown, or should I just plant new ones?
That's probably one that I'd be looking at. In 20 years, there's been a lot of cultivar development. I would probably look at bringing in some new cultivars. Like everything else, some of those, even a blueberry plant has a determined lifespan. And so I wouldn't be opposed to going in and taking those out, maybe even looking at new cultivars and coming in with some new cultivars.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely second that. And actually right now we have some blackberry trials in Middle Tennessee. So we're in the midst of looking over those numbers, and we'll have good information coming out about what has done well and what might be some fun options. When we think about kind of the productive lifespan of a caneberry, oftentimes we'll say 6 or 8 years in production. And so, it's great that you've gotten that long a life out of them. We tend to have viral issues and other disease issues that kind of build up and reduce vigor over time. So the thing that I would keep in mind is that if you decide to replace them, I would probably do that as an all-in effort rather than leaving some old and putting some new in beside of them, so that you don't run the chance of deteriorating the health of the new ones that you're bringing in. It's a great time. Put in an order soon. Like the supply of plant material has actually been somewhat challenging over the last couple of years because everybody's been planting everything. So if you're thinking about planting for next spring, now is a great time to put in your order.
And I would tie one last thing in, as you're doing that, planning ahead. And two things with that, I agree 100% with Dr. Baumgartner. Think about your trellising and all that system and doing it upright. Learn from maybe past things that you wish you could change, and make those renovations and change and move forward and have those trellised or do whatever to where you're growing those the way you want to grow them. The last thing I'd say on some of this ties hand in hand with sanitation. The big thing that you probably need to be doing right now in your orchards, your vineyards, whatever the case may be, if you've got any of that old fruit still left on the tree, get that stuff off. Clean up all that sanitation under the ground that's on the ground. Get all that debris, as much of it up as you can, because that's going to be a host for those disease and insect pests moving into next year, getting back to that planning and thinking ahead.
Awesome. So last call for any questions from those who are in attendance with us today. You can pop them in the chat box or put them in the question answer. We're on fruits section. So if you have any burning questions about fruits, here's another one on pawpaw. I know someone here in Middle Tennessee that has been trying to get some pawpaw trees and is having trouble locating a source. Can anybody help us with that? Any ideas on local sources for pawpaws? Where would a person purchase those?
Do we have that on the fruit resources for pawpaws? The native?
We
plant?
don't have pawpaws on our fruit supplier list. That's actually a great question. We should think about adding that. I've actually mail ordered a lot of the pawpaws that I've planted. Did you get yours locally, Melody, or you just order them in?
No, I did. I actually have 3 different locations here. There's 2 in Tennessee and 1 in North Carolina that we used. And Seth, don't you have a nursery up there close?
Yep. We have a native nursery
Yes,
on Oliver Springs Highway here in Oak Ridge area called Tennessee Naturescapes, and they have pawpaws available depending on their limited availability. And I also wanted to say last year, I believe the Tennessee Tree Day that distributes trees in March had the premium trees available, and pawpaws sold out real quick on that. So make sure you jump on the Tennessee Tree Day if they do have those available this year. And thank you for that.
And then in Middle Tennessee, we have in Fairview, which is close to Franklin, Grow Wild is a native nursery there, and they specialize in all native plants, and they sell pawpaws as well.
I know there's that Sumner County nursery that has pawpaws. Lucas?
Yeah, that's with David Hughes, and it's Rockbridge Trees, and he does a lot of pecans too. Now, the named cultivars of pawpaws do better than just wild general seedlings. So if you're able to find named cultivars, that would be better.
Yeah, a lot of them are rivers. So Shenandoah, those are one of the kind of the themed breeding lines. And it actually might be good to have a seedling and some of the newer named cultivars, because then you'll support cross-pollination.
Yeah, I would tell you, our brethren to the north, Kentucky, not the University of Kentucky, but Kentucky State has got a lot of information and research with pawpaws. They're a really good source if you want to look more information up regarding pawpaws.
All right, we have 2 more really good timely questions for our fruits category here. Should I fertilize my 3-year-old orchard trees at this time? Is this the time to fertilize? No, I don't think so.
I would hold off till spring, early spring, late winter.
Right, they're going dormant right now. So
Right.
they're losing their leaves. I mean, I was just kind of wanting to
We don't want to push out a bunch of new growth. We're in the 70s the next 10 days here in Middle Tennessee.
Oh my gosh, it hit 80 in Jackson yesterday.
I think 78 to high today. We're going to see some of these things get a little questionable on some of this new growth. We don't want to encourage new growth right now.
No. Yeah, so hold off on fertilizing.
So, that nutrition plan for fruit trees, I mean, that could be a full 3-hour program itself in terms of feeding. One big thing I'd tell homeowners, don't overdo it with fertilizers on those fruit trees. Fruit trees can actually grow a little bit more in marginal soils, and we don't want to keep them just ultra vegetative, because the more vegetative, a lot of times we can actually hurt some of our fruit production and fruit set from just over fertilizing. So I wouldn't do it now. I'd do it in the spring. And in terms of the planting, I tend to plant fruit trees in the spring of the year, a little bit more so than I do the fall of the year. But I would probably be waiting till next spring to be putting those in.
Yeah,
Right.
and Greg kind of already said this about fertilizer, but on pear, we really want to be careful because of vegetative growth, and the risk for fire blight. Apples is true, grapes. There are often instances where we'll see more over fertilization than we do under fertilization on a lot of those fruit crops. So it's kind of different than the way we might think about.
Yeah, and most of the time that fertilization comes after fruit set, when the energy's been used, it's there, and we just kind of replenish a little bit back after the tree has kind of gone through that the stress period of setting that fruit. Then we come in and feed afterwards.
Good. And then there was one more question on here about appropriate planting times. They're moving into a new house over the winter, I believe they said. They're wondering, is it okay for them to go ahead and try to plant some orchard trees in the spring, or is it actually better for those to be installed in the fall? Do y'all have preferences on spring or fall installations there?
We'll plan. I mean, if you're moving in right now, there's a lot of things that you need to be doing and getting ready for. And depending upon what fruit crops, that may be, it may take a little bit longer just in terms of amendments to the soil. For instance, blueberries or something like that, depending upon what soil pH is. Do your planting would be the big thing that I would say. And again, a lot of those fruit crops, I do put them in the springtime. Obviously, with trees, we can put those, plant those in the fall after a leaf drop. The biggest thing that I would be saying, more than planting now or in the next spring or next fall, would be just the whole planning process and site assessment and getting the site ready, more so than whether it was spring or after the leaf drop in the fall of the year.
And in addition to that, if you do wait and plant in spring, the hot summer temperatures can be a little bit detrimental if you don't have a consistent watering source. So keep that in mind if you wait till springtime.
Water, but don't drown them.
Awesome. Well, great answers. Thanks, those viewers who are with us, for putting your questions in the chat. That really was helpful, and it's always fun to get questions on spur of the moment.